let's jump into South Carolina. Another loss. They fought a 2-6 on the year.
Yep.
They traveled down to Texas A&M. And honestly, at the beginning of the game, it looked a lot better on both sides of the ball, I would say. But more so for me, I think the defense played a lot better in the first half.
Yeah. Honestly, they didn't play bad in the second half.
Yeah.
It was the first quarter went as good as you could have wanted it to go.
I kept texting you. I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Is this deep? Like, we're playing defense. What are we doing?
Still early.
Yeah.
Still early. And it kind of like Clemson, our offensive line just became a liability, especially in the second half with the intentional grounding calls. And we'll talk about this in another segment. Our special teams, the punter just let us. I'm not going to say let us down.
Yeah,
but
it's a factor.
And Beamer, somebody asked Beamer on, I think it's Sunday call, like teleconference. Somebody from the media said his job's not in jeopardy. But I read something where they want him to kick it higher to give the coverage team more time to get to the ball.
Right.
And why are we going to sacrifice that when you know he's capable of kicking it?
Yeah, just
50 yards.
It. Yeah.
And when you have the penalties like we did and you can't flip the field, that hurts the defense. I mean, it truly does. You can't. And when the offense couldn't stay on the field and the defense was going back out there after 4 plays, and they're already starting on our side of the field, I mean, what do you expect from them?
Yeah, special teams it can be a killer or it can be a game saver.
It was a game saver last year for us.
Yeah, I've heard Pat McAfee talk about it a lot, especially with him being a punter. It's kind of like having the yips. Like as soon as you start, it's definitely a mental thing. When, you know that you have the skill set to do it. And especially if they're asking him to do one thing, sometimes it's just better to say, hey, man, just go out there and bomb it. Kick it as far as you can kick it. If it goes for a touchback, fine. If we pin them at the 1, awesome. If not, let's stop trying to directional punt or do certain things at this point because he obviously needs some confidence. Yeah. And the thing about punting kicking is, well, a little bit better for us, but you're not going out there every play. No. It's not like a quarterback or a running back where you can get into the groove of the game. Yeah. If you go out there and you punt, you might not punt again for an hour or two, or you might not, or you could be right back out there, with South Carolina's offense sometimes, which offense hasn't been bad this year. So it's not like he's been out there as much as he was last year.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things where hey, let's just do something to give you some confidence. Grab the ball, kick it as far as you can, man. Yeah. Let's stop trying to worry about all these other things because it's obviously in his head because he has the talent. He was probably the best punter, top 3 punter in the nation last year. And this year it's just like, what is he doing?
Yeah, and I think it's just all special teams in general because there's I think it was his first punt of the game where we could have pinned him back pretty deep, and we couldn't get to the ball in time grab hold of it before it went in the end zone for a touchback. And that was Xavier Legette. And I don't think he was 100%. I don't think he should have been playing. I mean, he's basically a non-factor. You could kind of tell he wasn't his best.
He even had a drop ball, and that's a mental thing where you don't fully trust your body, your health. That's one thing that he hasn't done all year is drop passes.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what plagued him last year.
Right.
And I know that was a big emphasis in the offseason. But again, I was more I don't like losing, but I was more I think it was at the point like it was last year with our offense where they changed up the defensive play calling. And you have to. I mean, it clearly worked. They're not going to stop them every down.
Exactly.
People were pissed off all over social media about the defense. And again, I don't know what else you expect from them. You get what you get with them. And
the thing is, too, is you weren't playing a slouch of a team.
No.
I mean, you're playing a team that they haven't been, overly successful, but they do have a lot of talent on the field.
They underachieve for what they have.
Right.
What they put in that
The other thing that they have that South Carolina doesn't right now is depth. They have a lot of depth where they can send out fresh guys on offense and defense, where South Carolina's, you're pretty much running out the same 11, 12, maybe 13 players, on offense and defense. And eventually those guys get gas. Spencer didn't play bad. I mean, 20 of 33 for 176 yards and a touchdown. Again, he had some costly grounding penalties, but that's just him running for his life and just trying not to take a sack.
Yeah, and I think he even said the OC Dow Loggins told him, like, don't – and it could be just a specific scenario that would happen, but he basically told him, like, try not to take sacks.
Right.
And I think there were guys that was supposed to be there, but the offensive line doesn't give enough time for the play to develop.
And they've – I know I'm not sure in college, but especially in the NFL, they've kind of tightened down on grounding calls this year where, maybe if a guy was 10 yards away, they would say, okay, well, he was in the area, where this year they're saying, okay, there's no way he was going to catch that pass.
Yeah.
He's not in the area.
In our situation, I don't think anybody
nobody was in the area. Some of it's just, Spencer doesn't want to take a sack. He's trying his best to just get it down there. And when you're running, it's hard enough to throw the ball and then, try and get it in a certain area without it getting picked at the same time. That's tough.
But one thing, we did good at the beginning of the game is rolling him out of the pocket.
Right.
And, give credit. People that question him, like his leadership abilities, when he was at Oklahoma coming to South Carolina based off the Netflix documentary.
Yeah.
If you can't see how much of a leader he is
to
this team, Nicholas Harbor dropped the first pass was thrown to him. He went straight up to him. He's like, I'm coming back to you.
Right. And he did.
Yeah.
And Harbor had caught the pass. I mean,
and Beamer was, I'm paraphrasing, was like, everybody messes up. Get over it. We got a lot of game left. I'm coming back to you, so get ready.
Exactly.
And he made up for it.
He's definitely grown as a player.
Yeah. He's having to. He's got
yeah, I mean, just as far as his leadership, he's gained a ton of experience. He's gained a lot of leadership qualities being in South Carolina. He's gained a lot of being able to throw on the run.
Yeah.
And he's shown NFL scouts that. Unfortunately, we're 2-6, but Rattler personally has, I think, boosted his draft potential.
I agree.
He's played extremely well this year. They know what he can do in the pocket. He's done extremely well in the pocket when he has time.
I would like us to roll him out more.
Yeah, and I think the good thing is you're playing Jacksonville State this week, which isn't a slouch. I mean, they're 7-2.
Yeah.
But it's still a team that you should
on paper beat
do very well against. I think it bodes well because the defense did look a little bit better this week.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily show on the scoreboard, but you did see a lot of positives. It gives time for Xavier to get a little bit healthier. You got Harbor just playing a lot more snaps now. That's another positive to look at.
Yep.
Mario Anderson still looks good in the backfield whenever he has lanes to run in, and even when he doesn't, he's running the ball well.
When we got the ball going passing wise, especially in the second half, it opened up a ton of passing or running lanes for us.
Exactly. There was a lot of positives to take out of it. Yeah. Obviously, losing always sucks, but it was a different loss than what it had been the past few weeks, where it was just an abysmal defensive performance.
Yeah,
they didn't play amazing, but they played better. It looks like, I'm not sure. They said this last year with Satterfield that somebody else was helping with play calling when it got to those Tennessee and Clemson games, and towards the end of the year when we kind of looked better on offense. People are saying the same thing with defense, and maybe other people are assisting in the offense. I mean, the defensive play calling, that whatever makes it work.
But I can't imagine. I feel like, as somebody that's never coached, didn't play collegiate ball, but I can't imagine there's a lot of similarities between calling defensive plays compared to offensive plays.
No, I mean, it's completely different for sure.
Like I think they said we ran a lot of man, which clearly helps because when you've got a majority freshmen or sophomores in the backside of your defense,
right,
it can get confusing.
Well, the other thing is when you're playing zone, and especially for us, is you're taking a safety who's now, when he does play zone, he's used to playing this zone and playing this type of way. Just don't let him behind you type of thing. Where you're putting him at corner, where now it's like, all right, you got to keep him in front. You also got to play the guys behind.
Yeah.
It does get a little bit difficult for a guy who's played a certain way, his entire career. It's a lot easier to say, that's your man, stick with your man.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can hurt you playing man-to-man just because you can get burnt. But also for where we're sitting right now with the players that we're having to play at certain positions, it's definitely a lot more beneficial to just take the confusion out of it, take the thinking out of it, and just say, see man, cover man.
Yeah. And our D-line got pressure on the quarterback.
Right. And that helps because when quarterbacks just aren't seeing zone breakdowns and being able to just pick your zone apart, and you have a guy that's on him or close in to him playing man, that gives that defensive line more time to get to him. And Texas A&M's offensive line is probably one of the best in the SEC. I mean, they've got big time guys on there.
They recruit,
right, exactly. So to see them be able to get pressure and stuff, the defense looked a lot better. You've got 1-2 games that you should be able to improve each week, where the competition isn't Texas A&M, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, those type of teams.
On paper, we're the better. The next 2 games on paper, we're the better teams.
So you got those 2 games where you should win. You should be 4-6 going into that Kentucky game. Again, we play better at home. Kentucky's been kind of hit or miss. If you can build some confidence with these next 2 games, get a scheme of defense that works for you. Try and get some guys healthy by being able to play some younger guys, especially in this Jacksonville State game. Give some other guys some time to get healthy. You go in that Kentucky game, and maybe if you can, roll off 3 in a row, there's a good chance that the South Carolina Clemson game could determine who goes to a bowl this year.
I was seeing a bunch of stuff they were talking about. They need to bring back Jefferson Pilot Sports to air the South Carolina Clemson game, because between both programs, you haven't seen us kind of struggling the way both teams are this year. But yeah, I'm optimistic about this weekend. I was optimistic about the game Saturday. Saw a lot of bright spots we can build off of. Hopefully, we can continue to do that. Maybe we've called up Michigan to see if they'll help us a little bit.
I think that Texas A&M game was similar to the Georgia game, where we knew we probably weren't going to win. But I think that we played better than what I expected going into it, especially defensively. Unfortunately, offensively, it's not even talent. It's just injuries at this point.
I think we've had a different offensive line
every single game.
Every game.
And it was getting better when they when they were healthy, but just figuring out who played best where. The offensive line was looking better. Because they looked great in the Florida game. They were looking better each week, and then once they started looking better, then you got injuries.
And I was listening to Mike Uva's call-in show after the game Saturday night, and people were obviously upset, saying the strength and conditioning needs to be addressed. And he was bringing it up from the standpoint of he would understand that if it was the same injuries that just play the team, where if it's like a sprained ankle or it's like a knee, like soft tissue injuries, but it's just different freak injuries. There's just sometimes you can't prevent certain things from happening. No matter
the injuries, it's not a training thing. I don't think it's we don't have much depth kind of thing. Offensive line is one thing, because those you want to run out the same 5 every single time. Defensively, you can move in and out defensive line, linebackers, defensive backs. So when you get those kind of injuries, if you have a really in-depth team or a really deep team, and you see those injuries, then you can start looking at training. But when you're running out the same guys over and over, it turns into just be a body wearing down thing. And you can't condition to just play that many snaps every single game,
especially
for 12
when
games.
And you're staying on the field as a defense. Compared to, there was one drive, I think it was a damn good drive, where we ended up scoring. And it gave, it was plenty, it gave the defense so much rest. And that's such a game changer.
The problem is you have a hurt offensive line where you can't sustain long drives, and then you banged up, tired defense. Again, I think these next 2 weeks, they come at a really good time for a team that's trying to make that late season push to salvage a season, because you have this Jacksonville State game that comes at a very opportune time.
Correct.
And then
try to build some momentum.
And then you take that into Vanderbilt, which is a team you should beat, a little bit tougher than Jacksonville. So it's almost like you can not really take a breath, but you can try and build some momentum. Slowly up the level of competition. Slowly up the level of competition again with Kentucky. Potentially win that game, and then play a home game against Clemson to try and get into a bowl game. And if you finish out 6-6, the way the season started, and as much criticism as Beamer's gotten for the first half of the season, if he can do what he did last year and have a crazy ending to the season, it's going to build some more hype. to where he can finally start getting in the depth with the recruiting that he's getting in.
It's coming. Like, I mean, he's got the recruiting classes coming.
Yeah, the depth is coming.
Yeah,
you just got to be able to keep them. You got to be able to keep building the hype around the program. So I think if he can, it ain't always how you start; it's how you finish.
Exactly.
If you can finish off these last 4 weeks and you can roll out 4 wins and get into a bowl game, potentially win a bowl game, that would end up being a damn good season. Because, like I said, the bar right now is 6 wins. That's where you should be this year.
And honestly, hell, dude, if we just finish with 5, I think, considering everything that has happened the entire season, I think is when it sucks. I think 4 is okay. I don't want that, but at the end of the day, like, I'm a realistic Gamecock fan, and we're not a 6-7 win team.
No. And I think that there's a very good chance we win 6 games. There's a good chance.
Yeah, it's
especially depending on how these next 2 weeks look, and then how you look against Kentucky.
I'm more concerned about Kentucky than anybody.
Right.
That
Kentucky game is going to play a big factor into the Clemson game, because if you go out there and lay an egg, just don't look good, spirits will be down both on the team and the fans' perspective. But if you roll off 2 here, you play very well against Kentucky and pick up a win then, and then more than likely, Clemson's not winning out.
Their offense doesn't scare me.
No.
Clemson's offense, at least.
The good thing is our defense is about as bad as Clemson's offense.
Agree. Yeah.
But like you said, for defense, you can simplify it. Just play man. And let's just man up, because the talent is there. It's just, unfortunately, on the back end of the defense, you're playing them in positions that they're not used to playing.
Yeah.
So just make it simple for them, cover man, and it'll look a lot better.
I'll be anxious to see about this weekend. Luckily, the next 2 games are afternoon games, 12 o'clock.
Another good thing about the next 2 weeks, especially this week for me, is you're going to have a chance to get some freshmen and younger guys in that probably haven't had a chance to play this year, just because you don't know what they're going to give you. Mm-hmm. But you got a chance to get them in there and see what they got to potentially give you a little bit more depth going into the back half of this season.
Yeah.
If you can get some guys in there, get them some experience against Jacksonville State, maybe some against Vanderbilt, use them a little bit against Kentucky, and then, have just a little bit more depth to help you out on both sides of the ball. You could make a little run to finish the season off decent.